Hello and welcome to Ginposium 2020 panel discussion. The title of the discussion is From Confinement to Emergence, How We'll Work Through COVID-19. It's June 2020 and the world is in a strange state. And I wanted to take the opportunity to look at how the pandemic has affected our industry, what we've been doing to cope, and what we're doing and the changes we're making to the ways of working as we move into what's been called the new normal. I also wanted to make sure that we got opinions from a broad range of people across the industry. And I've made the most of the fact that we can't meet in London to do this event live by inviting people who might otherwise not have been able to join in the panel from across the globe to get their opinions. So joining me today, I have Melissa Katrinsik, who is the CEO and co-founder of Durham Distillery in North Carolina. Anand Virmani, who is the founder of Now Spirits in India. Ashley Hunker, who is the marketing and comms manager for East London Liquor Company in London. Georgie Bell, the global head of advocacy programming for incubation brands at Bacardi. And Shay Chamberlain, the bar manager at Black Pearl. Thank you all for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I thought we'd start today, because we're from different parts of the world, just by introducing or setting the scene as to what things are like where you are.
So it's ever evolving. I think as most are aware, the states run their lockdowns or their shelter in place rather very differently state to state. So in North Carolina, it has been more conservative in ensuring that there's been a longer time in shelter in place and longer time for especially our colleagues in restaurants and bars to stay completely shut. We are in what's known as phase 2 of opening right now. We are at the point where it's about 50% capacity on restaurants. The bars must stay closed. They are not allowed to open yet. That is not until phase 3, and that includes gyms. That would be more towards mid-July. But it's a very difficult time to kind of navigate since it is so different from state to state, and we're distributed in about 12 states at this point. So it's just staying aware of what's going on, and especially too now with the protests that are going across the country.
Right, so I'm in India. Wishing I was in Goa, but I'm in Delhi at this point, which is the capital. We were fairly early on the lockdown. I think by most estimates, the entire country, which is 1.3 billion people, was locked down. Not a small feat, I guess, but it was great. The air cleared up. I guess that was the first time we've seen it in Delhi, but it's turned grim, I guess, over the past couple of weeks, where a number of cases have started piling up as things have started opening back up again. So we are in what they're dubbing as unlock number 1, because they kind of went through 6 phases of lockdown already. So literally it was taking it 3 weeks at a time. Restaurants are still shut, though technically they're allowed to open. No one's really going to be going out right now. Bars are expected to open by the end of the month, but again, we don't really, as part of the industry, we don't really see how that's going to happen. Retail actually has opened up, about 2 weeks ago, and it's been a little bit frantic, I guess, because everyone's really descended on those shops after 2 months of not being allowed anywhere near them, 2.5 months of not being allowed anywhere near them. So while the retail space, the off-trade has started taking off, it started kind of getting back on tracks. On-trade is completely out of the picture, for the time being. So that's where we stand.
Yeah, so I mean, right now in London, still bars and restaurants are still closed. There's rumors that everything will be opened up at some point in July, but everything's really kind of fluid at this time. We're just waiting, I think, to see what the government says regarding cases. Slowly later, well, I think next week actually, we'll have the retail spaces slowly opening up again. Outdoor markets have just opened. But yeah, this has been almost 2.5 months here as well of just
kind of holding in place and waiting to see what happens next?
I'm down in Melbourne, so similar to America in the way that every state has their own order of how they can do it. Victoria and New South Wales were kind of the most populated states, so they had more cases and stricter lockdowns. So in Victoria, as of this week, restaurants could reopen, but bars cannot. You have to basically be having a substantial meal to be drinking. So this week's kind of been the first week. So lots of restaurants are as busy as they're allowed to be. You're allowed to have a maximum of 20 people in any venue, but it's one person per 4 meters squared. So for example, if we could open, we could only have 15 people in the bar at any one time. So we aren't open yet, but we are starting to do some collaborations. So we can use the space and team up with a restaurant who obviously can't seat as many people as they usually can, and have them dining in our bar. And sort of, we're doing that to start off with.
Pretty much the same as Ashley. We're just down the road from each other, I think. What's been nice to see in the last month or so is many more bars doing takeouts for people, as the government have relaxed on the piece of only being able to go out once a day. We're now allowed to go out sort of as much as we want, but of course sort of maintaining social distancing rules. So it's been great to be able to go and get, frozen champagne pina coladas from Coupette, and take out martinis and everything like that. But I don't know about everybody else, but I think we're all at that point now, week 12, where we're definitely missing social interaction over bars, and of being, my home cocktail skills are okay, but I definitely miss a great drink at a great bar being served by a great bartender.
Yeah, and I think that sort of brings me nicely onto my first question, because I think we can all agree, no matter, obviously the drinks industry, all industries have been affected by this, and the drinks industry in particular with the shutting of the on-trade, but it is those bars, the restaurants, the bartenders and the workers in those venues that have suffered the most throughout this. And so I just really want to move over to Shay, obviously as a bar manager, to just give us a bit of an update on how it's been for you. Who is it who's been giving you support? What sort of green shoots are you seeing in the industry?
It's been really refreshing, I guess, in such a terrible time, as once again the hospitality industry just bands together and helps each other out. We've had a pretty rough 6 months down here in Australia. We had the horrific bushfires that went throughout the whole summer, and hospitality came together through fundraisers. Small bars that can only fit 100 people were raising $50,000 in one night, So once again, we've got another pandemic, and hospitality are doing what they do best, having crazy ideas and coming together to help each other out. So a lot of bars, like Georgie was saying in the UK, the licenses have loosened up, so you can do takeaway drinks. You just have to apply. So some venues have decided to do that. Other venues, it's not for them. We've been doing that for the last 8 weeks, and the support from brands is just been a godsend, from people sending us bottles, because no one could order bottles anywhere in Australia because every bar decided to suddenly order 500 200 ml bottles. So we were just getting random packages from even the smallest distilleries with their empty bottles or whatever they could do, and it was amazing, just seeing even the smallest distillery to big people like Campari and Bacardi Martini just doing amazing initiatives, whether it was sending stock or buying vouchers. So buying vouchers in venues and then giving those vouchers to bartenders to then be able to use. So it's been really awesome to see once again how our community comes together and helps each other out.
Great. And I guess, that is that a similar story from your experience in the rest of the world?
I'll take that. So I've also been involved. So just before starting the gin distillery, I was involved with starting up two different bars. And just before the pandemic hit, actually, my colleague Vaibhav started the third one and his first in Bombay. Just hired a team, just put all that together, and literally things came to a standstill just when, I think week one of operations being open. So I think everyone's in that feeling of, it couldn't have come at a worse time. And it does feel like that. I think there's no one who said that, this is great, we were prepared for this. We had insurance or whatever else. There's not a single person that we've spoken to who said that. But yeah, we've seen big brands, like you were saying, Shay, we've seen big brands kind of pooling together, whether it be Brown-Forman, whether it be Diageo, Pernod, Bacardi, everyone kind of come together and put together money for for bartenders, servers, etc. So eventually we're hoping that trickles down to the right people, at least. And again, there's no real estimate of how long this will last. While technically things are supposed to open up now, it really is dependent on the customer, and the customer in India at least is a little bit spooked. So we don't have packed places, thankfully, I guess, at this point. But we don't have we don't have those norms as yet set in that you're only allowed one person per a 4 meter square, which is great, right? Which it's probably the way ahead.
And that's it. At the end of the day, this is going to come to an end, and the hospitality industry hopefully is going to reopen. Do you think it'll bounce back in the same way? And what can brands be doing to assist in that comeback?
I think that the hospitality industry is very resilient, and I think that we will definitely bounce back. It is going to take time, even as places do start reopening under strict regulations. You can't make the money that you did make. You can't hire as many staff as you did hire. The belt buckle is going to be pretty tight for a little while. So brands are needed more than ever, with whatever that is, whether it's a collaboration for a drinks night or tastings or whatever it is. It's a time now to come together more than ever before. And I think that's the only way that we're going to get through and see bars survive, and restaurants as well.
On the brand side of things, and Shay, I completely 100% align with you on that one. From a brand perspective, our work doesn't stop when bars start to open. As Shay said, it continues on, and we have to look at this like a short, medium, long-term approach piece. At Bacardi, at the very beginning of the COVID shutdown, we did set up a Raise Your Spirits initiative, which was a global initiative where we provided $3 million in terms of funding to different pieces across the world. But as you know, with anything, things can be globally led, but then locally adapted. So on top of that money being pledged, we've had brand ambassadors in the USA buying meals for bartenders who have been out of work, literally for month after month after month, which has been so humbling and lovely to see. But it's also not only from a brand perspective, it's just been great seeing bartenders sort of help each other out with and without the brands. I think in terms of bars, sort of, will it bounce back? As Shay said, it's hospitality, of course it will. Of course, the prediction, it's kind of impossible to make a prediction in terms of like what exactly the outcome is going to be. And that's kind of beyond, I think, all of our control. But we can definitely help shape and support and really help support those bars that are coming back now. And I think that from sort of a drinker perspective, as I said before, we're in week 12, and now more than ever, there is this pent-up demand to want to socialize and to reconnect. And there's only so much of that you can do in a park with a takeout drink, right? And it will be a long time before we take these simple pleasures for granted, such as being able to meet up at a bar. But I think once we do get there, that everyone will be like, okay, it's good, everything is fine again, and everyone will have that gimlet glow back on their face that we all have missed over the past sort of like 3 or 4 months. And we really, from Bacardi's side, we cannot wait to get back into bars, and when it's right and obviously safe to do so. to also show our appreciation for everybody.
And I guess, you know, talking from the perspective now of a brand and a spirits company, with the on-trade shutting down, that's a huge part of our customer base and our consumer base. And I've noticed, you know, ways of working in the distillery have had to change because of the pandemic, but also because of this change in demand. So, you know, the size of bottles that are being sold and the locations around the world, which now are major markets versus our minor markets, have completely switched around. It's really changed things up. So if I come to Melissa now from the perspective of distillery, how has production changed for you? And, you know, have you made any sort of long-term changes, for instance, to your new product development plans?
That's a great question. I think first we pivoted. We were one of the first ones in the country to pivot to hand sanitizer production. So I was working on the task force at the American Craft Spirits Association, I still am, for hand sanitizer, and creating the right regulations approach so that everybody in the country, the distillers that wanted to make hand sanitizer, would do it legally. And that has been, I think, a bigger project across the country than any of us anticipated. So that was a whole new different side of production, right? The flashpoints of 80% ABV are something not to at all fool around with. So we had to retrain our production staff and ensure safety every step of the way. And filling 8-ounce bottles of hand sanitizer is not the same as filling a 750 milliliter of gin. So it was a lot of how to make sure we were doing the best we could at that exact moment that we were doing it. But looking forward now, we've had a barrel rested gin that was supposed to go ahead and have a Q3 launch. I'm still very hopeful that it will have that capability. It's been sitting in barrels for 9 months now, so it's going to have to come out fairly soon. Yeah. But we also have our ready-to-drink canned cocktails. We have 3 SKUs of that. And it's been very interesting to see, I can't remember who, I think it was Georgie that said, you know, home bartending is one thing. And so for us, it was about seeing that uptick of ready-to-drink cocktails because they're the premium take on them. There's no malt beverage. There's no high fructose corn syrup. We tried as best as possible to put a bar quality cocktail into a can. And those have been very successful in the last 12 weeks, as we've seen that people just want something that they know is high quality and something accessible to them right out of the fridge. So that's been great. The other pivot that we had to do was curbside pickup. So the tasting room and the distillery is closed to the public, but now they can order online and we bring out their products to them directly and put them in the car. So that's been really interesting to see just how the community was so excited that they still had access to our products and they didn't have to take any risk. They didn't have to go into the liquor store. But, you know, we're trying our best to try and forecast through it. It's one day at a time for sure. Just quickly to say, though, back to, you know, we were at about a launch strategy for 4 new markets in 2020. So it was New York, Florida, Colorado, and California. So those are extremely large markets and opportunities for us. Yeah. And even though everything is still in flux, we think that 3 of them may actually launch at some point in the next couple of months. But how do you create a launch program for your brands when all of your channels are kind of shut? And the big brands are the ones that are moving on shelf in our liquor stores, right? So it's very hard to go into a new store, a new off-premise that's never seen us before and have them receptive to purchasing conniption. So we're going to just try every angle and keep moving forward. That's all we can do.
I think that's it. It's about being reactive. I mean, certainly I'm seeing every day I get new news and a different strategy and a different forecasting for products and markets. It's incredible. But it's interesting you mentioned the ready to drinks, because I know that East London Liquor Company, they were launched during lockdown. Ashley, your range?
Yeah, we just launched them last month.
How do you market and do strategy for a launch like that? I mean, in full lockdown.
Well, I have to say it had its challenges, obviously, but you know, part of what we've had to do is kind of with the rest of the industry, we've had to also pivot. So you know, we had a cocktail bar on site. We had, you know, distillery tours, like I think several of you have as well, and you know, all of that shut. And so we really appreciate what's happening with kind of the broader industry and our neighbors. So we actually had to launch an e-commerce platform, which has actually worked really well in our favor. And similarly, people have responded amazingly to that because they want to get our products. And normally the on-trade is our biggest customer, so they normally go to their favorite local for that, and they can't anymore. So we used our e-commerce platform for the majority of our launch, actually, and we had actually pulled up the launch because we were planning to do that a bit later in the summer. Okay. But it worked out that we did it beginning of May. We have 4 cans, so we have a vodka rhubarb, a G&T, a 0.5%, and then a rum and ginger that we've launched. And it's been amazing, actually, the response. I think, you know, internally there were a lot of discussions, like, especially at the beginning, is this insensitive to actually launch something? Is this, you know, how can we do this, you know, really respectfully to our industry friends as well, because, you know, we love bartenders and this is kind of bar quality again. But people were just really amazingly supportive and responsive and kind of desperate for something new, some good news, something exciting and new to try. We were at that point, you're only allowed to go out once a day for your, you know, outdoor exercise. So people were coming. We had a collection on Fridays, or we still do. They were doing that for their daily exercise to walk to the which I think is great. So we were like, yeah, we're helping out with everyone, right? It's a place to go. It's a place to get your walk on. So it worked surprisingly well. And I think it was just kind of getting liquid to lips because we've never done RTDs before. So we didn't know how people would respond. So we were just making sure that people can try as much as they could. And the focus really was kind of our local communities. So again, we're based outside of a beautiful park, wonderful East London. And so we just kind of focused on the people around there and yeah, it's been amazing.
Great. So Anand, have you been producing at all? Because I know you're in Delhi and your distilleries in Goa.
We've just started. So yesterday we had our first batch of Hapusa. And the problem is we've not been able to find the right ingredients. Just when we were supposed to start last week and there was a cyclone that hit. So, you know, we were told, listen, stop everything. There were 2 cyclones actually so one hit Calcutta, then 4 days later, one hit Bombay and Goa, and we were just like, you know, what's going on? End of the world kind of scenarios. But yeah, we've just started up. We've started distilling. Like I said, retail is opening up, and we're you know, one of the good things I guess to happen during this. Generally, India and you know, our government is fairly against alcohol. In fact, our constitution says that, you know, we shouldn't have alcohol at all. But every state is kind of able to take its own call, and there are some states that are being a little bit more progressive than others. So Maharashtra, for example, has started home deliveries, which just did not exist. Online selling does not exist in India at all. Home deliveries was kind of, you know, on the sly, was happening in the past, but now it's kind of gotten formalized in parts of India. So Maharashtra, West Bengal, you don't have to walk to the store or drive to the store, whatever. You can just kind of call it in. So things are changing on the production side, and yeah, we've been working on other things. So instead of necessarily focusing on NPDs and you know, doing all the fun stuff at the distillery, we've actually taken a relook at what we're doing on the sales and marketing side. And you would have seen this, probably not the others, but what we've been doing is basically, since retail started opening up, On trade, of course, is still closed, and just in on trade, there's 7 million people employed across the country that are almost, well, they're already expecting 2 million people have already lost their jobs. Most of the others are also going to end up losing their jobs. So it's a huge dent for all those individuals and all those families that depend on those individuals as well. So while, like I said at the beginning, it's great that big brands are coming in and supporting, certain restaurant associations and bar associations with donations, etc. I think what we kind of wanted to do was, we sat back and looked at the situation and we said, there's potentially a little bit more that we can do, right? Now, the situation we're in is, we're a small company. We just started 2.5 years ago. We've got 17 salespeople in our company, which is not a lot considering the kind of, space we have to cover and the number of states, right? Every state really has not more than 2, maybe 3 people. So there's definitely a lot more ground to cover. So what we decided was, okay, let's kind of create job opportunities for these guys who've actually lost their jobs and take them on in a commission-based kind of structure, right? So we won't, while we would love to kind of give out donations, we don't have that wallet, right? We're not big enough to really create a decent enough impact. So what we'll do is we'll forego our margin on all the bottles that are sold by these guys. So what we've done is we've created a squad or a team of individuals who've lost their jobs during this COVID time. So people who worked as bartenders, servers, kitchen staff, all kinds of jobs around bars and restaurants. Brought them in, and we're currently at 27 people. We're looking to take that on to at least 40 people, maybe more. We've got a lot more applications now that things have kicked off. So as of 1st of June, we've actually kicked that off, where these people are either calling up or going to the stores where it's safe and actually making that sale, right? So they are selling, they're keeping the entire margin that otherwise would have come to us, and they're able to kind of take that away with them. Now, we're very clear with them, it's a temporary solution. If at all they get another job or their restaurant opens back up again and they want to go back, happy to kind of have them go back, and then instead kind of bring another person in or 2 more people in. So it's on a cyclical basis. It's been great so far. It's only just started, so there's not much to talk about in terms of result, but the kind of response we've got from the industry has been great. We never expected this to be PR, anything, but it's been absolutely fantastic. The response we've got, the number of people who've shared our posts, etc., was, even when I look at the best pictures that we've taken in our in our short lifespan of 3 years, no one's ever even looked at those many pictures as the number of people who've actually looked at this and shared it across the country. So we've been quite happy with that, and hopefully it's 6 months down the road we're able to look back at it and say, wow, that was great.
That's such an awesome thing to do for the industry as well in terms of supporting bartenders. And you mentioned that obviously production strategies had to change, marketing strategies had to change. Do we think that the change in consumer habits that we're all having to adjust to right now, are we seeing a permanent change in consumer habits, and is that going to have a permanent effect on the way we think about marketing our spirits and the type of products we make?
So I think for us right now, we're really focused on our local communities and trying to ensure that we develop close relationships over time by being hyper-local, so that they feel that we are part of their long-term just celebrations at home when they start to have family back over again, but also that they feel comfortable once we open our cocktail bar, that they can come and know that we're going to take care of them, and having put all of the necessary processes in place to ensure cleanliness and safety along the way. I think consumers are always going to have that eye towards, a hyper look at how well an establishment is being compliant, for lack of a better word. So if they walk in and there's, 3 or 4 deep at a bar within a couple of months, they're going to think, well, that's not necessarily an establishment I'm going to go back to. And so I worry that consumers are just going to be more anxious. And I understand it, but I think what we do here is really critical to making sure that they feel comfortable and feel a part of this brand on an ongoing basis. For the other states, for our consumers in other states, it's all about our social engagement. So in the last 6 weeks, we actually started on Friday evenings at 5:30, what we call the Conniption Cocktail Hour. And so it's a Zoom that we host. Anybody can come in, but we had special guests from everybody since, a bartender or a bar owner to a brewery owner that's only a couple blocks from here. And it's been amazing. We've had on average anywhere from 25 to 30 people join us every Friday. And just to have conversation and that sense of social, like that's what we're missing, is that engagement with each other. And I think that we'll continue those. It may not be every Friday. I think it's going to be probably once a month. But I see that as a way for them to continue to feel access to us and also to engage with each other, even if they're not comfortable going back out yet. Just
So I think that on with what Melissa was saying, with when consumers start going back into venues, they're putting their trust in you. So for us, we, as I said earlier, we are now able to start opening slowly, restaurants, not bars. And it's a 30-page government issued rules, essentially, of what you have to comply with. You also have to do an online course, essentially, which takes about an hour to say, we're going to wipe everything over and everything's going to be clean. So at least one person for every venue has to fill those in. And so I think that when people start going back into your venue, even though that's what you're meant to be doing, there's places that won't be doing that. And people are trusting you. And they're also not going to be reading those outlines. And when those articles come out saying bars and restaurants are reopened, that's as far as they read. Consumers aren't really going to read the full article that says X, Y, and Z. This is what you have to do. You have to sanitize your hands when you walk in. You have to be 1.5 meters away. You have to get table service. There is no bar service. You cannot sit at the bar. They're not going to read that, and they're not going to know. So I think for staff working in the service industry, even more patience is required than ever before, and educating. We educate people about drinks all the time, about what's delicious, and get them to trust us like that. It's the same thing. We need to understand that it's not their job. If I go into a doctor's surgery, I don't necessarily know what to do. So it's up to us to guide them and show them, and then they trust you. And I think for us, we've been doing takeaway cocktails for 8 weeks, and we will try to continue doing that even once we can open, to boost revenue. And I think people are enjoying. They're not necessarily enjoying being at home, but I think they're starting to appreciate. They're cooking meals, and maybe they've learnt to cook, or they've learnt to make cocktails, and they want to have people around at the house. And they're going to remember that, you were a venue that was there for them and delivered them cocktails and delivered them in the right way. And then when they start coming back to your venue, they're going to understand that you're doing everything you can, that they feel safe, so they can come back.
So marketing is in such a fluid state right now, right? Because we've seen more change in the last 3 months than we have done probably in the last 3 years. And what we're having to do is constantly adapt to our drinkers' moods and behaviors and how they feel. And everything is in a flux right now, right? And as these sort of behaviors have changed, we also have to continue to change. So I mentioned before about sort of short, medium, and long-term approaches into this. Just like Melissa was saying about the virtual tastings, we've seen great success with those as well. On sort of like ambassador-led pieces, on partnerships. We've had a partnership with Flavia over in the USA, and also bringing bartenders in as well. So we've been trying to create as many at-home tutorials as possible, brand-led, and then paying those bartenders for their time and sending them out kits and bottles and all sorts to be able to make up drinks at home to inspire people like myself who are trying to make drinks at home, right? We've also been trying to do it the other way, which is we've actually had a partnership here in the UK with Deliveroo, where we've been able to connect bars straight to drinkers. So it kind of feels like you're at a bar because you've got the bar perfect drink, but you're of course not. But the great thing about that is some of the money from that has been going back to the bars rather than to Bacardi. So we've been able to support that way. But we've definitely seen this migration, even with all of that, and even with all of this ability for sort of takeaways from bars and restaurants, of course, to e-coms and supermarkets as well. And so, and I think quite a bit of that might change what the future looks like as well. And so from a marketing perspective, we've kind of changed a lot of our mindset into sort of digital and e-com pieces, as well as keeping our feet on the ground of what's going on sort of in real life, as it were, when things get back to, well, I don't think things will get back to the normal that we knew it before, but whatever the new normal is, as it were. So yeah, it's definitely, I think as long as we're all being fluid, as long as we're all sort of like looking at what's going on, being aware of what's happening, and really trying to support the right people and making sure that, you know, that the people that want to be drinking our brands and our spirits and our gins, that they can be drinking them in the best way possible, whether that be them making them themselves, whether it's without any instruction, whether it's an instruction from a bartender that they love, that they wish that they could go and sit opposite in a bar, or whether it can be through a service such as delivery, or as Shay said, sort of a takeout option. I think that's brilliant. And then going one step further, when we can all go back, helping the bars build up that trust again with the consumer.
Yeah, I was talking with a friend earlier actually this week based in Vienna, and she's also within the industry, and she was just talking about kind of the consumer behavior there, because Austria is you know, ahead of where we are in the UK about you know, with lockdown easing. And she was just saying, you know, there was this massive spike when people can go back into restaurants and back into, well, bars, or you know having reservations, etc. And then it calmed down. People kind of just got a little bit anxious after that, and they thought, okay, well, no, we'll do, you know, house parties instead, like small dinner parties and get-togethers. And I think moving forward within the industry, both for brands and for, you know, bars and restaurants, I think what's going to have to change is you know, what Shay was talking about with Georgie, is always have options for people. So you're going to have some people who are going to this week want to go to the bar because they really miss their favorite bartender, or a freshly pulled pint in a G&T. Like, I can imagine we all feel that way as well, right?
I think we all closed our eyes then.
but you know, you want that, but then maybe the next week they'll be like, you know, I felt maybe I had a sore throat at the end of the week, kind of freaked out. Why don't I just stay in this week? You know, let's get some drinks from our favorite bar sent to us, or for collection, or an RTD or something else. And I think, you know, they're just, brands in general are going to have to diversify their portfolios in order to kind of say, right, our audience is changing, you know, as you're just saying, week to week even, and we don't know what's going to happen. Is there going to be another spike? Will there be another lockdown? We need to make sure that everyone feels comfortable and safe. And even if they, you know, feel safe one week, they might not feel safe the next. So how can we, you know, still allow them to socialize, still allow them to engage in these, you know, little pleasures in a way that's meaningful and manageable? And I think that's the big thing moving forward that, you know, we're thinking about, is how can we do that, and how can our colleagues within the industry also support? And like I said, when bars do open again, I can imagine many of them are going to continue to keep this off trade option always, where you can have a pre-batched cocktail ready to actually pick up, or you can stay in, and there's always going to be something for you.
You know, so one of the things we've seen during this time is people have obviously become more interested in making drinks at home. They want to try and replicate that experience. Of course, they're not going to get to the Black Pearl level, but they might wish that they could. So we've been doing quite a few of those workshops ourselves. We've been collaborating with all kinds of you know, magazines and and online journals, etc. Who are all looking for this kind of content at this time. So the number of people who've got in touch with us is just great, because clearly there is an appetite for this, and we've seen levels of excitement around this. I was hounded by someone for a ice cream gin cocktail after the last workshop that we did, and I really had to rack my brain on how we can do this. So it's been great. We've had the opportunity to build content, and customers of course have been upping their game at home. I think the expectation, and again, this is just conjecture also from talking to a lot of people, on the on-trade side, where there are a lot more restrictions that are going to come into place. I think they're going to focus more on the health aspect, and on look at what we're doing to keep you safe and keep the place sanitized, as opposed to look at the 30 ingredients that are going into our cocktail. So we think cocktails, at least on the on-trade, are going to become simpler potentially, more pre-batch stuff, more things which are bottle aged or barrel aged, etc. Where when you order, literally there's one person, if that, who's handling your glass, handling the ingredients, the lemon, the squeezing the lemon, washing the glass, etc. So one person doing that, minimize all of that. Probably simpler drinks when we get out there, like a pint sounds good right now. But gin tonics, slightly elevated gin tonics, and obviously a more elaborate cocktail game at home.
Okay, so we're at Ginposium. We're all involved in some way in the trade of gin, and we all know that we've had an incredible few years over the past few years, where we've been in the midst of this wonderful boom of new gin brands and skyrocketing gin sales. What do we think, or what do you think the effect of this pandemic, if any, is going to have on the trajectory of that boom?
Yeah, I think I'd have to say, at least in the UK here, we're all talking about people making cocktails at home and people, trying to experiment and do simpler serves. And I think gin is just one of those amazing spirits that can kind of handle anything and do quite a lot. So whether that's a gin and tonic or a Negroni, which also is amazing, especially when it's this warm out. I think right now, at least in the coming months, it's going to help continue its success, and kind of beyond that, I don't know. But I mean, at least in the meantime, I think it's going to really support its boom.
Great, that's good news.
I think hopefully we're not flattening this curve. This curve should continue along the path that it's going. And I think I think the biggest asset that we have on our side is the gin and tonic. The fact that with just the two ingredients you can make a fantastic cocktail at home, and people have been experimenting at home already, so they're fairly comfortable, and they have opinions on what's the best gin, what's the right kind of ice, what's the best tonic, and that in itself is a very successful 2-ingredient cocktail, even more so, and probably Bacardi guys don't need to do this at this point, but even more so than the rum and coke. It is a complex, bittersweet cocktail which just works wonders. And of course, I'm talking about it because the gin and tonic was invented in India.
In the US, I have to say, I'm excited because I don't know if anyone has watched gin over the last couple of years, but we have been inching towards a boom. We've never really gotten there. And the last 12 weeks data of gin is it's up double digits. And so it is consumers now rediscovering that spirit at home. And I am over the moon because I've been waiting for this. And it's, for us, very like the same. We have the gin and tonic in the can, where we house make the tonic here. And people are discovering that. I mean, I still think that there's a lot more martini in this boom for us rather than gin and tonic. It's not quite seen the resurgence of popularity here in the States versus elsewhere. But it's at that critical juncture where people are realizing they want flavor. And I'm all in We are, yeah. I think as long as we continue to engage our consumers, and we had a martini roadshow that we did with bartenders over the last 12 weeks, and those videos we IGTV'd them on our Instagram profile, but you can see that they are exploring, and it's really fun to have that moment where they're rediscovering.
I think totally to Melissa's point, like, you know, people are sort of discovering new pieces and they're focusing a lot of their discovery around flavor and new flavor experiences. And while we've all been stuck at home, quite literally, we've had more time to research online. And so now more than ever, you know, gin, especially in the UK, is growing. And it's definitely front of shoppers' minds, but not only that, but people are really delving deeper into what they're buying. So they're seeking out a cool flavor story, a backstory, a very innovative process like we have on Oxley, for instance, or just like interesting botanicals that go into the mix. And all in all, that's almost combined as well with gin drinkers becoming more savvy and more sort of aware of what's going into the drink themselves. So they are wanting to explore that. And, you know, to everyone's point here, I think the opportunity for gin that we're seeing is definitely sort of innovation within flavors, to give people more of an option as to how they can spice up their typical martini or bramble or gin and tonic, or ready to drink sort of gin and tonic or gin and tonic twists in cans as well. So I think within gin, there's still this opportunity to showcase what we all have, and to keep our gin drinkers excited about the category.
So I don't think this is going to affect the gin boom whatsoever. It is massive in Australia. We have nearly 200 different producers of gin in Australia, which is crazy considering our population. If you don't know, the Gin Queen, which is a blog here in Australia, she's just spent most of her quarantine doing a list of all the different gins, and we've got nearly 600, which is crazy. And a lot of them are heroing native Australian ingredients. So it makes it really different and really interesting, and so many possibilities. Anything from big quantities like 4 Pillars, which is just exploding and absolutely killing it, to tiny little ones that, you know, they don't even have a distillery. We've got a place down here in Melbourne called Craft & Co, where you can just go and use their stills for the afternoon and make your own gin. So it's huge. Currently working at Black Pearl, I've never worked in a bar where I've made so many martinis ever. So I don't think that people are getting bored of it at all. If anything, they're becoming more adventurous, you know, between Negronis, which that drink is, you know, 100 years old and still just going from strength to strength, where you can walk into a pub and order a Negroni. So I think that they'll struggle a little bit when it comes to cellar doors, which is really big here in Australia. Instead of going on like a winery tour, gin tours are huge. You can drive out, hit up a couple of distilleries, which is awesome. They're struggling because they haven't been able to open. But hopefully, as soon as people can get out, Australians love to get out. They love to travel. We're sort of blocked off from the rest of the world, floating over here right now. So we'll just have to discover our own backyard.
Thank you. Well, I mean, from my point of view, that's awesome to hear, because I don't want the gin boom to go anywhere anytime soon. So just to wrap up today's panel, it would be good to talk about, I mean, people say in tough times that there's always opportunities. So it'd be great to hear from each of you. As you look to the future, what opportunity, or what big opportunity can you see for either your brand or a bar or the industry as a whole?
Honestly, as we look towards the future for bars, for bartenders, for brands, led by brands, but also led by the bars and bartenders as well, there's never been a better opportunity for collaboration, especially through a digital age. And I'm really hoping that when we come out of this, and as I said before, we are able to enter back into bars we don't forget all of the positive sentiments that have been put forward by everybody over the last couple of months. And I'm personally really looking forward to seeing what these collaborations look like over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, and what we can also do on a virtual level as well. The fact that we're all able to speak right now to Shay in Australia, to Melissa in the US, to Anand in sort of India, I think that's incredible. And I look forward to being more worldly and more global with our decisions and innovations, and innovation in flavor, especially with gin, going forward from conversations like this.
Yeah, I think absolutely, you know, it's incredible to be able to chat with all of you guys and to kind of, you know, build on that and those collaborations. But equally, I think it's amazing how much we've been able to actually learn a lot more about our smaller communities around us. And I'm really hoping that we kind of continue that. I mean, you know, especially as people have kind of limited doing public transport and things like that, exploring their neighborhoods, exploring their local bars, pubs in the future, and what's available out there, I think is going to be incredibly fulfilling for people, and really build on that, and even getting to know their neighbors over, you know, a drink in the park or on someone's patio. I think I really hope that kind of continues on, and that we can kind of build from there and really kind of dive into it.
I think there's definitely been a discussion that has started, which has been interesting from a consumer standpoint. They've started taking it more seriously. They started taking gin and drinking a little bit more seriously. They care now about what goes in there, you know, but not just from the health perspective of it, but because, you know, they've done it themselves. They've made their own ice. They understand the pain it takes for a really great bar to kind of, you know, be able to serve the quality that they are able to serve. So I think that discussion itself, with more and more people getting involved in that discussion, is a great one for all of us to have, where quality should come to the fore, and people should start caring more about what they're putting into, you know, into their glass and into their bodies, you know, eventually as well. I think there is going to be a new normal. You know, we as humans don't like change, right? But sometimes change is kind of forced upon us. And I think when that happens, there are some good things. You know, there are some great things, in fact, that can come from that. I'll speak to it from my own experience. I only got into gin making because the company I was working for, Remy Cointreau in India, shut shop. So if not for that, I would have still been, you know, probably, you know, working with Remy Cointreau, not, you know, kind of living this dream. So there is going to be a new normal. There is huge opportunity here for everyone involved across the board. It's not like there's one country affected. Every one of us, you know, is affected in different parts of the world. So personally, I'm quite looking forward to seeing what comes of that. And of course, the excitement is just the fuel, you know, to get us there.
I think moving forward, I totally agree with Georgie when she says about brands collaborating. I think we shouldn't forget what we've learned through this time, that we need each other, and it's not really the time to be like, oh, we're sweet now, see you later. We need to stick together and keep those developments moving. And you know, we've had to learn a lot of new skills, and we've had to pivot businesses. And I think some venues are probably loving just doing takeaway, and some venues aren't, of course. So I think that with takeaway cocktails, I'm loving seeing these grown-up RTDs in boutique bottle stores and the big names as well. And I think that the more we can make grown-up drinks and educate consumers, the better the whole industry is going to be.
I think if I had been asked this question a week ago, I would have had a much different answer than what's going on. And to be quite transparent and authentic right now with all of you, I think that the United States is going through quite a pivotal change. I think that it's overdue. And I think that we have no real sense of what's going to happen in the next week versus in 4 months when the presidential election happens. So when I look at what hospitality means and how we move through this to really focus on our community and what our community needs from us. In Durham, North Carolina, where we are, it is a very diverse and progressive community. Very thankful for that. We rally around each other. All of the protests have been peaceful, and we have a fantastic African-American female police captain. So she's been really great at being at the forefront of rallying the community, regardless of the bar owners, the restaurant owners, who unfortunately have had some destruction of their property. I think for us as a brand, we're going to look at opportunities to learn from this. We are pursuing racial justice training for our entire staff. We are pursuing sponsoring the science department at a local disadvantaged school. We are really trying to walk the talk. And I think for our immediate future in the next, say, 3 to 6 months, especially in the United States, it's going to be more about social than it necessarily would have been about hospitality. And I think that's where the brands who really mean to be part of the change have an opportunity right now to have authentic voices. And that's our goal. You know, that's the lovely thing about making gin, is that it's about a spirit where people come together and, you know, cheers to each other and celebrate with one another and develop relationships and friendships. So we want to be that.
Okay, so thank you all for joining me today. That's been a really interesting talk and fascinating to hear your where you are right now and your thoughts on the future. I mean, certainly it seems like everyone seems pretty positive about the future, which is great to hear. And I think as an industry, we have been supporting each other incredibly well throughout the last few months, and I hope that continues. Thank you all for watching.